Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day to everybody.
How y'all doing?
Welcome to Relationship Talk with Beth Lee
And Dan IT Guy.
Dan IT Guy, my lovely assistant, my wonderful husband. And so we are so happy that you're here today. Last week we talked about communication, and this week we're going to talk about listening skills and constructive feedback. So it should be a good show. And please don't mind if our dogs start barking in the background. They just want to communicate a little bit too. So should be good. So we just wanted to say hello. I know that Destroyer is already here. And so hello. And I'm sure Mama San will be here soon too. Got a volleyball game tonight. So yay, go JT. And anybody else who is coming in later to listen to us, I know that with school starting up, there's a lot of sports things and a lot of different school meetings and activities that you have to go to. So we really appreciate you coming in, even after the show, even after the live has ended, and just coming in to support us and, offer your 2 cents and just listen to what we have to say. We really appreciate that. So just an update for you all. The book Making Marriage Last by Beth Lee is very shortly going to be published.
Yes, thankfully.
So I don't want to give any specific dates on when it's coming out, but it should be very soon.
Very soon, hopefully.
I don't want to start crying about it. So we're just going to move past that.
Let's move past it.
So if you would like, where is it? Here it is. Yep. So if you like our channel, if you want to support us even more, you can like, subscribe, and comment on our page. We welcome any comments that you have.
And then click it twice, dang it.
And you'll see that we have the email address up here on the screen. So anytime that you'd like to email, feel free to do that. If you have any questions or any comments or anything, please feel free to do that. Only positive comments though, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So if you have any comments that you'd like to make, we would welcome those as well.
Yes.
So we're just going to jump right in. Last week, we want to do a little recap from last week. We talked about communication and how communication is really a key to a successful relationship. And, any kind of relationship that you have, whether it's a marital relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, friendship, communication is really that key.
Your child.
Yes. And if you want a really good sex life, communication is key there too.
Yes.
So the issues with communication.
Es muy importante.
I don't know why I'm like tripping over my tongue tonight. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't had enough alcohol yet. So anyways, so issues with communication, not paying attention to what your spouse is saying, not looking at body language cues, not listening well, not speaking effectively. Some tips would be to speak clearly, speak to your spouse instead of at your spouse, the 2-minute rule that we've talked about. And your homework from last week was to use the 2-minute rule in some type of conversation that you would be having with your spouse, and also to play the body language game. So I hope you guys were able to do that. And so we'll jump right in. So active listening, we'll just read a little bit from the book here. Active listening is a skill that takes practice and time to develop. And active listening involves focusing on the words, the feelings, and the message that your partner is trying to convey. That's why the 2-minute rule is so successful, because it forces each of you to listen to the words, the feelings behind the words. So, for example, we moved to my parents' old house, and we were living at this house that I was renting from them to begin with, and then we decided to move to my parents' old house. And as we were driving over there, Dan was really talking about reservations, about why he didn't want to be moving over there.
I had just moved out to Arizona.
Yeah.
And prior to moving to Arizona, I actually had a house in Rockford that I
had to completely redo. So, yeah, I had just got done doing extensive construction on this house. Literally ripped out every wall, replaced all the drywall, brand new kitchen, brand new bathroom, brand new everything, brand new paint, brand new drywall, brand new electrical, everything brand new. Plumbing, all brand new.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know if I can do that. And then
It was a lot of work.
once she told me that she felt like she was being led to do that, I was all in.
Yeah, because we kind of had to take a break from our conversation, and he was walking around the house still trying to figure out what needed to be done. I went out in the backyard and just kind of walked around and tried to get my thoughts together a little bit so that I could convey what I was feeling to him a little bit more. And I think that's really important to do in a relationship. Really just take some time to really get those thoughts together so that you can effectively communicate better and get those feelings across. Because sometimes in the heat of the moment, we're not able to effectively communicate what we're feeling and all those thoughts behind what we're saying. So it's important to take a few minutes just to collect yourself, I think. So once I was able to do that, and I said to him that I really felt like the Lord was leading us to move into this house. I didn't know why, but I felt that the Lord was leading us to move in there. Then he was able to kind of take a step back and say,
I really need to think about this before I go shooting my mouth off. And so I apologized to her. And
we ended up moving in and redoing the house. And then one of our family members, about a year after we moved in, one of our family members needed a house to move into short notice. And so we were able to give them that house and move out. So
I'm sure everybody remembers the crisis, the housing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they lost their house, so they had nowhere to go. And we were renting it from her parents at the time. And we just said, here you go.
We have this house. And we just went through and redid it, and we can move out. We were already looking for a house of our own at the time. So, it was one of those things where it just kind of worked out really well. And so I think that's why we were led there. So, in that sense, it's important to listen also to God and really understand why he's leading you somewhere. You might not understand why at the time, but just following his lead and doing what he's telling you to do, it became a blessing not only for us, but for another family to move into that house. So, it was good. So moving on, active listening also requires you to remove those distractions so that you can hear the words, you can focus on the message, you can offer feedback about that message that the sender is giving you. And seriously. Did you hear what I just said?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah, you weren't listening. Okay, so removing distractions. If you pick up that phone one more time, seriously, where's the mallet? Where's the hammer? So just making sure that you put distractions away so that you can focus on that message that the other person is trying to give to you. We've had that issue. I don't even know how many times. We'll be talking to each other and one of us will get a text message from someone or a notification for a game that we're playing or, a video we want to see or whatever, and we'll start watching that and then not even hear what the other person's saying. So, we've both done that. We've both been guilty of that numerous times. And I don't think it's something that's ever really going to stop. Because,
everybody has to multitask at some point.
Yes.
And when you multitask, sometimes the task that you're doing on one side it requires more focus than what you're doing on the other side. And it's never good.
Well, even
but
like
at least
today,
you have to admit you've done it.
Yeah.
And I did that today because.
Well, even today, I came out here. I was bothering Dan when he was working, I admit. And, he was in the middle of trying to do I don't know, probably 40 things at one time. And here I'm talking to him about what we were going to do on the live tonight. And he just kind of looked at me and said, I'm really sorry. I cannot focus on what you're saying right now. I have to focus on work. So at that point, I have to take a back seat because what I'm talking about is less important than what he's doing for work. So, it's kind of figuring out, all right, what's more important? Hearing something that I'm talking about or doing your work? And maybe sometimes what I'm talking about is more important at that time, but sometimes it's not. So, it's picking those times where your spouse can actually focus on what you're saying. So as the communicator, it's your job to really figure out when is the best time to relay this information. Is it right now because I want this information given right now, or should I pick a different time when it's better for him? And we ended up talking about it later and it was fine. Like I was still able to get that message across to him and he was able to focus on it at that point.
Anybody who's ever done telecommunications knows exactly how it goes. You're sitting there going, okay, I can do this, I can do that, and then 5 things come in from nowhere. And you're scrambling, trying to get everything kind of put back to where it's supposed to go and figure everything out. Yeah. I was in the middle of one of those. And
here I come walking in going, oh, okay, blah, 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 blah. No, Trace, no.
And I wanted to hear what she had to say, and I was trying to listen to what she had to say, but I couldn't. And I couldn't do both at the same time. I tried, but it didn't work. And I admitted to her. I said, I wish I could say that I'm a triple tasker, but it ain't happening right now.
But I do have to say that the way that you handled it and the way that you were able to communicate to me that you could not focus on what I was saying at that time, it was awesome because it avoided hurt feelings later on, and so it was a really good way of bringing that across.
It was a good, honest admission.
Yeah. So I appreciated it. So sometimes active listening also involves repeating the message as you hear it to make sure that you understand what the sender is trying to convey.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't hear it the way that they mean for it to come out. For example, Dan grew up having dyslexia. So I think, what was it, 2nd grade that you found out? 1st grade?
Second
grade? Yeah.
Because I went from Rockford School to Winnebago schools, and then they physically took me from 2nd grade and put me into 1st grade because I was not at the same level with those kids. Rockford schools just didn't have the same curriculum. So, I had to go back to 1st grade, and then they also put me into they gave me a counselor that would help me get, through some of the, help me to improve my symptoms as much as possible. And she did a great job. I have to say, I know other people that are dyslexic that didn't get help I can't even imagine it. I would not want to be that.
Yeah. And, coming from an education background myself, we studied special education in some of our classes. And what I've always said to people that have kids that are in special education programs is it's like building a ramp to go up instead of trying to go up the stairs. Because a child who has special needs can't go up those stairs the way that other children can. So sometimes you just have to build a ramp, an alternative way of learning so that you can learn the same thing. And so even in our relationship, I had to learn, okay, I need to ask a clarifying question to make sure I understand what he's saying and to make sure what he's saying is really what he means, because sometimes it's not. And we went through this when we first got married where, you would say something and I would say, that doesn't sound right. Is this really what you mean? And you're like, I didn't say that. Yeah, you said, this is what you said. I swear, this is what you said. And you're like, no, that's not what I meant. And then you say what you meant.
Right.
And so it avoids issues. So just asking clarifying questions, and you've done that with me too, where you say, this is what you said. Is this really what you meant?
This is what I heard.
Yes.
Because I know what I heard and what she said can be two different things.
Sometimes,
it happens. Sometimes it happens to her, happens to me, I'm sure it happens to everybody,
We started doing that with the kids too, and saying to them, this is what you said. Is this really what you meant? And, so it was kind of teaching them how to navigate through conversations, So it's really important. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Active listening also involves speaking less and listening more. My mom used to tell us, I'm sure your mom used to say it too, God gave you one mouth and two ears so that you could listen twice as much as you speak.
Yeah.
And yeah,
but the mouth is so much louder. That's what he's telling me. She didn't think it was funny either.
I'm sure she thinks it's funny now.
She probably did think it was funny, but she couldn't laugh.
Yeah, she couldn't laugh. Yeah, as moms, you don't laugh at their funny things right then. You laugh about it later when you're having that proper conversation with your spouse. You don't laugh in front of the kids, no. So just being able to, listen more than you're speaking. Sometimes I have that issue. I like to talk.
Never known that about you.
You shut it. You shut it. So it's important not to talk over your spouse. Interrupting your spouse when they're trying to say something to you, that is not active listening. It's not listening for feelings. It's not listening out of love. It's actually really rude, and it's disrespectful. You have to give each other time to react, time to speak, offer feedback. One of our favorite jokes is interrupting cow.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting cow.
Interrupting
Moo!
cow. I love that joke. That's kind of how it is, though, when you're talking over the top of your spouse,
Thank you, South Park.
Hopefully we didn't just steal that joke and get in trouble. But
No.
If we did, sorry. And so just being able to give that respect to each other and allow the other person to speak and, give time to one another to speak. That's why I love the 2-minute rule so much, because you're giving each other time to speak and give feedback. So going back to clarifying questions, those are questions like, did you mean to say this? What did you mean by this? Am I hearing you right? Things like that. We talked a little bit about tone of voice when we were talking about communication. And I know that in the morning, my tone of voice is really gravelly. And so I have to be very careful about the wording that I'm choosing in the morning, especially because I don't want it to sound harsh.
Yeah.
And I have to be kind of careful about what my tone of voice is in the morning, because I don't want them to think that I'm mad, because I'm usually not. But that tone of voice can get you, Also the wording that you use, using words that have a negative connotation, a negative sound, like instead of saying something is cheap, saying something is inexpensive. It's the wording that you choose to use. There's a whole lot, we all know words that have those negative connotations to them.
Yeah.
And, so picking your words wisely, it's important to do. So, and then try not to speak in absolute terms. Always, never, like
you never take out the garbage.
You always talk on top of me. You never listen. Those absolutes are probably not true. Do I never take the garbage out? No, I never do. That is true. I never do. Well, I do take it out from upstairs.
Yeah, you take the stuff down from upstairs. So technically, yes, you do.
But no, I never take the garbage out. But you never do the laundry.
True.
But that was one of the rules we set up.
Fold.
You do.
Sometimes.
You do.
Once in a while.
Yes.
Maybe.
But that was one of the rules we set up when we first got married, that I would do the laundry forever and ever. Amen.
Because you like it.
Because I like doing laundry, and you'd agreed that you would take the trash out.
Yes.
That's why I don't take trash out, because it's not my job.
I also plow the driveway and shovel and you mow the lawn and you take care of everything in the house. And you have 10 times as much work as I do.
No, we have the same amount. We have the same amount.
Doesn't feel like the same.
We have the same amount. I will tell you, we have the same amount. It's not one person. No one person. No.
And I just sit here and go, honey.
No. That is not true. That is not true. We have our jobs that we like doing, but I will admit I never take the trash out. So that is an absolute statement that is true. But
in this particular case, yes.
Yeah, but those absolute statements, it's best not to use those because they're probably not true. And those absolute statements, the always, the never, those words, those are trigger words to start a fight. And that's immediately going to put somebody on the defensive to come back and say, well, yes, I do. It's immediately going to put that person on the defensive. So if you want to start a fight, feel free to use those words.
Right.
That's a great way to start a fight. So I will say that. So we have a comment up here. Let's check that out. Mama San is here. Mrs. 91. Oh, nice. Awesome. So happy that you guys are here.
How y'all doing?
Hi. I'm so happy you guys are here. So moving on. Another communication issue is arguing through texting. Hi, Lillers. So arguing through texting. How can you pay attention to tone of voice, body language, eye contact, and listen effectively while you're texting?
Takes skill.
You can't.
No.
You can't. You can't effectively communicate using texting. And we have, oh my gosh, I can't tell you the number of arguments we've had that have become incredibly worse, exponentially worse, because we're texting each other and we're not hearing the other person's tone of voice. We're not hearing.
It does make a difference.
Yeah.
There's no question.
We're not seeing the other person's body language. We're not making eye contact with one another. And it just makes it blow up.
It's just not effective communication.
Yeah. It turns that tiny little molehill into a great big mountain of fury.
Now, letting your wife know that not only do you need 4 quarts of oil, but you also need a battery, that's different.
Well, that's not an argument.
That's not an argument.
But having an argument through texting, probably not a good idea. So if you need to resolve an argument, please do it face to face. Just makes it better. Phones and TVs are so incredibly distracting during a conversation. How can you fully focus on that message if you're engrossed in your phone or in your TV? You can't.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. So Dan and I have to remind each other to pay attention. We have to pay attention to the other warm body in the room.
Wang! Pay attention.
Bueller. What does it say? Slap face icon is not a fair fight. No, it's not. It's just not. Saying hello to everybody. Hello, everybody. So that is like our, what are you doing there? Dan's being distracting right now, but that's okay because I love him anyways.
Sorry.
What are you looking for? Oh, it's somewhere in there. There it is. Up on there.
Bueller. Bueller. Bueller.
So that's our active listening portion. So active listening is important, It's much harder than people think it is. Dan and I've had arguments where he's like, I am listening to you. No, you're watching your phone. I will tell you, if someone has ADD or dyslexia, they're able to focus a little bit better if they're doing something else.
Yeah. So
I do have to give him credit for that. Like I do have to give him kind of an out on that one, but sometimes.
No.
Sometimes he just doesn't want to listen to what I have to say.
Most of the time, probably. No.
Thank you for being honest. I appreciate that.
No. Totally kidding.
All right. Sounds like we're going to be having a fight tonight. I'm just kidding.
Bueller. Bueller.
There's a lot of times where I have to do that. No, a funny story. My dad was the king of tuning people out. So, and me being, as talkative as I was when I was growing up, I know it's hard to believe I was talkative when I was growing up.
What?
I know. It's hard. I
Shocking.
told you it was hard to believe, but my mom and I would be having a conversation with my dad, and my dad would be totally tuning us out. So my mom and I came up with this way of bringing his attention back around. And so I would just start making things up, Yeah, we went to the store today and it blew up right in our faces. And I just couldn't figure out, how that happened. It was amazing. And he's like, wait, what? Where were you at? And so great way of bringing somebody's attention back to you is, make up a little story and have an explosion somewhere in there, It really livens up the conversation, I think.
Explosions do liven up the conversation.
They do. They do.
It's just a fact.
Yeah. I figured that out. So.
Thousands of action movies can't be wrong.
Right. So we're going to move on to constructive feedback. A lot of people call it constructive criticism, but I like to look at it in a more positive way because constructive criticism sounds negative and harsh. So I like to think of it as constructive feedback. It really is a necessary part of communication, though.
Yes.
Offering alternative ideas for something, and those can really help resolve issues. And we've been able to do that with each other. I know when we started going on Destroyers Live, and even starting this live, we've been able to give each other constructive feedback, and
yes,
let each other know what we thought. And even reading, when I was writing the book, I spent a lot of time reading it to Dan, or we would read it to each other, and just to get his feedback on it and see what he really thought about it, because it's important. This is my teammate here, and I want to hear what he has to say and see if there's any changes that can be made. And so sometimes he would say it sounds great, other times he would offer suggestions on changing things. So one of the examples that from the book that I wanted to share with you is from this section here on constructive feedback. I homeschooled our youngest for 6 years, and anyone who has attempted homeschooling understands how stressful and frustrating it can be sometimes, especially if you're dealing with multiple children, or if you're dealing with someone who has
an empirical learning disability.
Yeah, learning disabilities or special needs. There were many, many times when Dan would come home from work that my level of patience was really low. And my patience level had run out, I think, about 4:00, and Dan would come home at 4:30. So my patience level was really low. And he would...
I walk in the door and she'd be like, "Tag, you're it!
Put your hand up, Tag. I don't want to talk to the child for the rest of the night. He's yours for the rest of the night. I'm done. I'm out." And so he and I would go outside and we would talk about our day. And he'd be talking about, "Oh, I had so much work to do, and they gave me this right at the end of the day, and I had to do," and I'm like, "That's lovely, honey. I had to deal with that person who's screaming inside the house all day. And that was the screaming I heard all day." Yeah, it was hard. So at first, when we first started talking about the homeschooling stuff, Dan would tell me, "I just think you need to have a little more patience with them." And I'm like, "I'm glad you're sitting across from me, because if you were sitting right next to me, I think I'd be strangling you." Oh my God, I just told you how much patience I had. And now you're telling me I have to have more patience. No, I felt like screaming at him, but I didn't scream. But, my thoughts at that point were, did he not just hear me? Did he not hear me when I was telling him how patient I had been all day? Did he not understand how hard homeschooling is? Did he think so little of me that he believed that I was screaming at that kid all day long? It was frustrating. So one of the times that we were talking, Dan suggested that we table the conversation for a few days. He said, I want to do a little research. And I'm like,
I'm a researcher.
all right. So I thought, my thought at that point was, oh yeah, this should be really good. I majored in education. I studied this for a long time. I have some knowledge behind me, and he thinks he's just going to look some stuff up on the internet and solve all my problems for me. Oh, thank you, Mr. Guru. I appreciate
Web
it.
God.
Yes, you're so thoughtful and generous to give me all of your information, all of your vast amounts of knowledge. Thank you.
Your information stores.
That was a great attitude, huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. So Dan comes back a couple of days later and says, I found some things on the internet that I think might help. And I'm like, all right, let's hear him. So he was talking about.
You rolled your eyes.
I did. I rolled my eyes. It was really grown up of me to do that. But he talked about scheduling more breaks throughout the day, timing the classes, like setting a timer for each class so that our young student would know the class lasts for this long and then it's done. And whatever you don't finish, that's homework. So keeping him on track, having a really consistent.
Getting used to a schedule,
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that
schedule.
until I read it, and I'm like,
mm-hmm.
Makes complete sense.
And then one of the other things Dan had read about was me taking more breaks for myself throughout the week and on the weekends especially, and not because my thing at the time was I was working on things for Michael for even on the weekends.
Yeah.
Doing research for upcoming classes and, doing this and that. And he said, I think you need to put that away and, just not think about it right now. Oh, yes. Well, he can watch it later. Yes, he can definitely watch it later. You can set hotkeys for sounds.
Yeah, do that. I saw that. I was looking at that today, trying to figure out how to map it. I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, so we'll figure it out. So, anyways, I thought about the suggestions that he was making, and I thought, wow, those are really good. Those are really good suggestions. I should follow some of those. So I did. I followed some of the suggestions, and awesome. And I thought, that's some of those suggestions really worked, especially being able to just walk away and setting the timer for the classes. And it took a little bit of time to get used to that, but we got used to it. And, it worked out really well. So I had to really think back and realize that I needed to apologize to Dan for having such a crappy attitude when all he was trying to do was help me, And I had to try and remember that we're on the same team. And that's hard to remember sometimes, especially when somebody comes to you and says, can I make a suggestion on how you can do this differently? A lot of us don't like change. And a lot of us think that our way is the best way when clearly it's not. If you're not succeeding at something, clearly your way is not correct. So making changes would really help. So when you're giving constructive criticism, our dog, pass on. So when you're giving constructive feedback, you want to do so gently and positively. So it might be helpful to ask your spouse, would you like my opinion? Or I have some suggestions. Would you like to hear them? Or it sounds like you're frustrated. Can I help? Things like that, so that you're not just going in there like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
And taking over.
Like Tessa.
Yes. So you want to do it kind of gently and then when you're listening to constructive feedback, as the person listening to it and receiving it, try not to go on the defensive. Listen without becoming upset. And try to understand that your spouse is on your team and just wants to help you out.
Whether it seems like it or not, sometimes it's true.
Because, you've asked for constructive feedback sometimes, and, So
I try to be careful doing that though.
why?
So, I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't always want to hear constructive criticism or feedback. But it is always better when I do hear it because I'd rather hear the truth than anything else. So
Yeah.
If I ask a direct question, I expect a direct answer, and I always get it with you. That's one of the biggest, contributing factors to the fact that we can continue to communicate very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really beat around the bush all that much. I don't like doing that.
I mean,
Direct path.
don't get me wrong. There's some times when probably both of us are a little brutal.
A little
Brutally
too
honest.
blunt, I think.
A little too blunt.
Yeah.
Okay, way too blunt, probably, but
Hey, sometimes
kind of
it's
who
necessary.
we are.
Oh, well. You don't like it too bad.
You want an honest opinion? You're going to get it, whether you want it or not.
So, homework this week. For this whole week, this is a whole week long homework assignment. Whenever you and your spouse are having a conversation, turn off the TV, Tessa. Turn off the TV and place your phones out of reach. So whether that's like on the kitchen counter or across the room somewhere.
In the toilet, whatever.
No, not in the toilet. Don't put them in the toilet. No, no. We're not paying for any phones that you destroy because of taking his advice. Don't do that. We're not paying for that.
Not recommended.
No.
Won't make the 90.
Put them out of reach. And at the end of and then have your conversation without any distractions. So then at the end of the week, so next Tuesday night before our live starts, I want you guys to sit down and talk to each other and talk about how much of a difference it was without those distractions around. So just see how it is just for 1 week where you don't have the distractions like the bugs flying into your face and the dog barking. I don't know where to put the dog. Maybe across the room. I don't know. So try that for just 1 week where you don't have any distractions. And that's, holy cow, where just for 1 week where you don't have any distractions and just see how it works. So, and that's not like every conversation you're going to have, just on like serious conversations. So the second part of your homework, sit down with your spouse and make a list of ways that you can introduce constructive feedback positively to each other. So, for example, you're saying, would you like my opinion?
Yes, please.
Fantastic. I'll give it to you later. So you're saying that's a positive way of bringing across positive feedback. I like this. Put them in the mailbox. Yes. That would be a good thing. Our mailbox is at the end of our driveway, like 100 feet away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. 123 feet away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be good. Of course.
Why do we know that, huh? We measured it.
I don't think any person would be coming and taking phones out of our phone box or out of our mailbox. I think it would probably be a deer or coyote or something that would take it out of there.
Yeah.
Raccoon. I don't need raccoons making charges on my phone.
You never know.
Don't.
The bees out here
What's that? Come again? Yes.
are strong.
Bees. Anyways, all right. So that's the second part of your homework. Third part of your homework. At some point this week, I want you to take hold of your spouse's hand. And I want you to say, I'm on your team. And I always want the best for you. I want you to be the best version of yourself because I love you.
I want you to be the best version of yourself because I love you.
Thank you. Ditto. So that is your homework for.
There we go.
So that's your homework for this week. So once again, when you're having for this week, when you're having a discussion, turn off the TV, put your phone away, turn off those distractions, and Just make sure that you're communicating directly with one another without the distractions. And then at the end of the week, talk about how that went. So part 2, make a list of ways that you can positively introduce constructive feedback to one another, and then use those ways. And then third part, tell one another, I'm on your team.
I'm on your team.
I always want the best for you.
I always want the best for you.
And I want you to be the best version of yourself because I love you.
And I want you to be the best version of yourself because I love you.
Amen. And yes, Destroyer, Packers suck. Go Bears.
Go Bears. Come on. About time. Just saying.
Go Bears. And you guys have a really, really lovely weekend. A really wonderful week. We're going to have a good week because there's no football this weekend, though, is there?
No.
No, but next week there will be. So we are.
10th,
Yeah.
the cheese will be cut.
So you guys have a
I'm
wonderful
talking
week.
about farting, of course. Not
That's a great way of ending our live for this week. That's good.
Dang it. Sorry.
You guys have a wonderful week. We will see you next time. Love
Love
you
you
guys.
guys.